Okay, so hi there. So I'm going to record out a new office hours for this week. We did office hours yesterday in the community, and I did get a recording at one point where I thought I was sharing a screen, though it didn't come out correctly. And not only that, when I reviewed yesterday's recording, I thought that I could do a better job clarifying the question that we were discussing. Okay. Now, before I go any further, because I have decided that I am going to probably upload this onto my YouTube channel, I think it'll be beneficial for my subscribers on YouTube as well as those in the RYL Abroad community. Let me just introduce myself. My name is Arnitha Webb, Global Lifestyle Strategist and founder of RYL Abroad, and I invite you to dig into your strategy and these questions and more by joining the community. Okay, let me go ahead and share screen. So I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of the top 10 cheapest countries to move to, and to put that list, rank it highest to lowest in cost. Okay, so let's look at this list. Malaysia, Vietnam, Colombia, Thailand, Nicaragua, Bulgaria, Mexico, Portugal, Costa Rica, Turkey. Let's keep that list in mind. As a matter of fact, let me make sure, I've already copied that top 10 list just on my notepad, just in case I want to just like go back to it and look. We want to keep this list in mind, okay? Especially top five, I would say. Malaysia, Vietnam, Colombia, Thailand, and Nicaragua. Now, as you are thinking about living outside of the United States, if you're putting cost first, the first thing I want you to ask yourself is the country that you're looking, that you thought might be, good for you. Is it in that top 10? Is it in that top five? Probably not. Probably not. Let's take it a little further, okay? Now, I did start digging a little deeper and asking ChatGPT to give me some separation in age, separation in Black American versus non-Black American. Okay, and I just want to touch on this just a little bit, not go too deep here, but just touch on this for a little bit. Okay, top five reasons according to ChatGPT. Okay, top five reasons that Black Americans want to leave America that's between the ages of 30 and 55. Because that whole idea of, wait until you retire and all that stuff, we might as well say that that's tossed out of the window. Okay. This is not our grandparents' day. This is not our parents' day. Everybody, look, we're not looking at, oh, let me get a job and work there for 30 years and all that kind of nonsense, because it just is sort of unfathomable at this point. Not to say there's a lot of options out there, but I'm talking about just, that general idea of working at one place for, decades. Okay. So between 30 and 55, they're saying the reason why a lot of Black Americans want to leave, they're talking about me, right? Racial discrimination, economic opportunities, quality of life, political climate, cultural connection, right? Versus 55 and over, okay, getting a little closer to retirement or already retired, retirement lifestyle, healthcare access, racial discrimination, cost of living, climate preferences. Now, it's separating out those reasons when I'm sure you will probably agree with me that maybe not retirement lifestyle, but everything else that's listed in the 55 and over category is equally as important. Racial discrimination is overlapping, but you see, cost of living is not even coming into play for 30 to 55. I'm sure you would disagree with that. Cost of living is a factor no matter how old you are. Okay, it's saying climate preferences is going to be more of a factor for 55 and over versus cultural connection. I don't know. I think that there's yeah. Okay. Let me just keep going. Okay. And this is interesting. For non-Black Americans, it's saying top five reasons political dissatisfaction, excuse me, political dissatisfaction, cost of living. So they're saying cost of living only matters to Black Americans that's 55 and over and white folk. Okay. Cost of living, quality of life, which everybody cares about, right? Healthcare, everybody cares about. Adventure and travel. Don't we care about adventure and travel too? Okay. Here's where it gets real interesting though, because I just kind of, gave you that, just, we can have some opinions there. All right. Recommendations. Recommendations for Black Americans 30 to 55: Ghana, Portugal, Costa Rica. Now, let's look at that top 10 list. Let's think about that top 10 list. That top 10 list did have Portugal as number 8. It did have Costa Rica as number 9. Did not have Ghana. But now it's saying, if you're just going to look at recommendations for Black Americans, Ghana is going to be added. Okay. And if you're 55 and over, Mexico, Panama, Malaysia. Well, I remember Malaysia was number 1, excuse me, on the top 10, being the cheap, being the highest cost of living on that top 10 list was Malaysia. Was Panama even on the list? No, Panama was not even on the list. Nor was Mexico. Okay. Nor was Mexico. I'm not going to go any further with this because I think you can already see, if you're looking at cost of living and you're only going to look into that bracket of cost of living, you're going to have a narrow search. You have to take these other things into consideration. You simply have to. And at this juncture, and I'm going to share screen again for in a minute. At this juncture, when you're planning something as big as living outside of your home country, you might as well get the maximum of what you want out the deal. Whether you're in that younger age bracket or the older age bracket, look for the most that you can get. And for my subscribers that say, well, Arnitha, I hear you, but and you say you're talking to people on a tight budget, but how do you do how? Okay. Now, I don't know, because without talking to you individually, I don't know if you say you're on a tight budget and that is a retirement budget, or disability, Social Security in some way. I don't know if it's a budget that is not going to move, and it is what it is, because then that's one set of circumstances that we work with. Or if you're saying this is what it is now, but it's likely to change within the next 2 years, 3 years, 4, I'm still in those income earning years. I don't know which bracket you're falling into. Okay. So it's challenging for me to address that without some more information. Um, yeah, because I just don't have enough information. So I'm just going to ask you to stick with me, and let's try to get to an answer that is for you together. Okay. Now I want to talk some facts, because again, I think I mentioned Americans. I think we function on so much assumption, right? So much assumption. The first thing, let me go to this one first. Let's go to the Legatum Prosperity Index. The Legatum Prosperity Index. I will put links on to this video so that you'll be able to get to the right websites. This is a very, very useful website, and trust me, I'm not going to turn this into a lecture. Okay. I'm not going to turn this into a classroom or anything. I'm just going to show you a few things. Now, first thing I want to point out is the legend, the guide that's right up at the top with the headings. You have rank, country, and then I'm just going to slowly hover over so that you can see. The first item is safety and security, personal freedoms, governance, social capital, investment environment, enterprise conditions, infrastructure and market access, economic quality, living conditions, health, education, and then natural environment. Now, all of these you won't be interested in all of these, but there are some of these, no matter where you're going, when you're at this stage of doing research, is going to be important to you. Okay. So, as a solo traveler, I am a woman, a Black woman that travels solo. To say that I am not going to always have safety at the top of list when it comes to living outside of the US, of course I'm going to have safety at the top of list. So if I go here and click on safety and security, Okay. It is going to rank, let's say I'm just going to look at top 10 since we started with top 10 countries for safety and security. Okay. Luxembourg, Switzerland, Norway, Taiwan, China, Japan, Denmark, Singapore, Iceland, Netherlands, Sweden. Okay. I can keep going to maybe top 15. Okay. But you see what's showing up there. All right. Now I want to just click on the next one, personal freedoms. Personal freedoms. Now, we probably would assume US is definitely going to come up in this because it's supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave, all of the above, right? Personal freedoms. Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Iceland, Ireland, Germany, Belgium. No US. No US is nowhere in here. US is all the way down here. Now I'm going to scan over to things that I hear. Living conditions. Living conditions. Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, same countries. I can keep regurgitating them. You're gonna find some slight differences near the bottom, but in the top, if you especially if you start looking at those top five, you're gonna start seeing the similar countries. Even if I bounce over to education, even if I bounce over to climate. Now, why underneath are you showing me this? None of these countries are countries I'm interested in moving to. Why are you showing me this? And aren't we talking about cost of living and why I shouldn't be putting cost of living at top, right? So let me explain, and I'm going to keep showing you some data. Um, Number one, the reason why we see the same countries excelling in each of these categories, these countries have something in common, and this is what I want you to start seeing. I want you to approach a move like this with an open mind because you have one life to live. We all have, I felt emotional there for a second. We all have one life to live. And I pray that we all live it to the fullest. I pray that we all live it without putting the limitations that our own minds and thoughts and perceptions and assumptions can put on us. The world does enough to tell you where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed how you're supposed to act and this, that, and the other. We have enough of that. We have enough of that. So if you're going to take a chance and you're going to say, I'm going to get in front of my life and I'm going to live a life that is going to be rich and full and give me experiences that are priceless. And if I'm going to meet the people that I'm supposed to meet, and I don't know why I'm getting so emotional. I may have to cut this out. But if you're going to meet the people that you're intended to meet and you're going to have the experiences you're supposed to have and do and live your life to the fullest and and we all hope that when that day a moment comes that we have no regrets and that we can go, wow, this was a wonderful life journey, and you want to you know have that legacy. Then that's why I implore you not to put limitations, because you have these self-inflicted limitations. Now, let me get back to what I was originally going to say, is that the reason why you start seeing some of these similar countries, some of the same countries, is because there are some similarities there. And that, my friend, is one of the things that made me go, whoa, and I wanted to know more. Because, see, I started probably right where you were. Oh, where's the cheapest places, or where's the places that's going to fit right into this bracket? Where's the places that's going to fit into all the assumptions that Arnitha has in the box of life experience that she has. And remember, I told you, my father used to tell me, Arnitha, what you don't know will make a world. And I cannot tell you how something that my father said to me when I was a little girl so many times, like periodically through my life, and he left me. He left me. He passed away over a decade ago, and over 2 decades ago, and his words live in me like he's saying them today. What I don't know will make a world, and it was things like this that made me go, what's the similarities in a country that could not only be great for education, great for the climate, great for healthcare, great for personal freedoms, great for women, great for children. These countries also come up on what they call that happiness index, happiest people in the world. They say everybody want to come to America. Bullshit. Why? These these people are happy where they are. But what it means is it's an idea that the country has an obligation to its citizens, that there is a right proportion of its citizens' tax money that needs to go back to them, not as a matter of, is healthcare a right or a privilege? No, they've decided it's the right of the citizens who are paying into the taxes. They need to have open air spaces. They need to be able to be outside and outdoors, and the air not be so polluted, and they can ride their bikes, and they need to know that the water is good, and they need to be able to send the kids to school without school shootings, and they need all of this is non-negotiable things. This is something that as a government we owe it to our citizens, and we take it very seriously. And so no, our seniors are not worried about, people are not worried about evictions because the living wage is comparable. No, the seniors are not worried about, not having enough food, and people with disabilities are 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 not getting the service. No, none of that. None of that. None of that. And what you're doing, personally, if it's not inflicting any harm to anyone else, we don't care. It's none of our business. Okay. And so, what I'm asking, or what I'm suggesting, is that if there are certain things that are important to you, you may be surprised. You may be surprised where you can find everything you're looking for. You may be surprised. I'm going to say, second to that, I would go, well, why wouldn't some of these countries also come up on cheapest countries, right? And there's an answer for that too. Okay. Some of it has to do with data and algorithms, and Google searches, and how things are put together, and the perceptions. The reason why I did those questions with ChatGPT, separating out Black Americans, non-Black Americans, and age groups, I wanted you to see the assumptions that was going into that. Okay. The assumption. So when you're searching something and you're putting in top cheapest things, you may not be saying, oh, and I want you to bring all the bias into my inquiry, into my Google search. I want you to bring all the bias and all the discriminatory practices and all that into it. I want you to bring all that into it. You may not be saying that, but it's there. It is there. So when you look at the top 10 countries that are cheapest, we saw, and I'm going to go bottom up because the bottom is the cheapest: Turkey, Costa Rica, Portugal, Mexico, Nicaragua, Thailand, Colombia, Vietnam, Malaysia. Okay. But then if I say, oh, give me the cheapest countries for non-Black American, then it's going to come up with something else, because it's going to assume, oh, you're a certain racial identity, so here, this one. Let me tell you, this is what you will find. This is what you will find. Okay. you will find that not all, but in some other countries that never make a top 10 cheapest country list, they will have plenty of neighborhoods, plenty of food costs, all that fit your bracket. But these countries are not considered poor countries by nobody's standards. And they're not going to come up on a cheap list. They're not going to come up. They're not going to come up. So you got to be careful with how you're searching. You got to take this approach more broadly so that you're getting everything that you want out the deal, but you also got to understand that these algorithms and whatever, the biases and all that stuff is sort of embedded in there too. Okay. Let me show you something else. I hope this is making sense. Let me show you another site. The socialprogress.org site. Okay. Now, I love data, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the United States because I want to, since we're talking about leaving the United States and going elsewhere, let's look at some facts on the US, okay? We're not US bashing, we're just looking at reality. And it ain't nothing going to probably shock us because hell, we live here. All right. So, just before we begin, I want you to know that the dark red circles, just to give you a legend, let's look at the legend right quick. All right. The dark red circles means that in that area the country is underperforming, and the red circle with the clear inside still underperforming. When you get to the yellow, that just means neutral. The country is not doing bad. It's doing okay, acceptable. Anything blue is going to be in the overperforming category. Okay. Again, I'm not trying to make this a class. Okay. But just giving you something to munch on. So United States overall is in the red, not solid red, but in the red, underperforming. And if I just eyeball this at a bird's eye glance in all the different categories, it's going to be a lot of red for the United States. Red in water and sanitation, red in maternal mortality. If you're a Black woman, you understand that. I have my own story about what I experienced when I was giving birth. I'm lucky to be here. They had to revive me with the paddles. Okay. And it wasn't because I was ill. It was their negligence. Housing is in the red. Dissatisfaction with affordability. None of this is going to surprise us. In the red. Safety. Look at safety for the United States. All solid red. So when somebody want to tell me, why do you want to leave the United States? The United States is all bad and it's so dangerous outside of the United States. Shut up. That is not the reality. That's not the reality. How can it be so safe when just about everyone has a gun? Multiple, especially if you've ever lived on the West Coast. It's the Wild Wild West. So, health, red, solid red, only one yellow. Access to essential health services. Great. We can go to the dentist and go get some emergency care. Okay, everything else solid red. Environmental, you have solid reds. Freedoms and choices, solid red in early marriage, solid red in freedom over life choices. Young people not having not in education and employment. It's not, I don't want to, like I said, we're not US bashing. We're just starting from here because this is where we are. Now, I want to go to some of the countries that I hear from you guys and some of the countries that was on the list. So let's start. Portugal, hotspot. Portugal, Portugal is overall in the yellow, mean they're not doing bad. Let's do a bird's eye glance. Not a whole lot of solid red. They're mostly yellow. mostly yellow with definitely more blue than the US. Where we have solid red is in the area of housing. Not surprising, especially with how they got hit with all the price hikes with the too many Airbnbs and so forth. I think that they are going to get a handle on that in the next couple of years, quite honestly. Okay. But overall, the country is not doing bad at all. And it does come up as being great for cost of living. I just think that you guys got to look outside of places like Lisbon and perhaps even Porto and look at some of the other areas in Portugal, and I think your options will open up drastically. But Portugal is also a place, if you got to really consider your lifestyle, because if you don't want to have to buy a car and and drive or whatever, you have to take that into consideration. You have to take into consideration your lifestyle choices. That's why there's more things to factor in that are I won't say more. I will just say that is equally as important, okay, as cost of living. Okay. Now let's look at another someone recently, and I have some clients here. So let's look at Albania. Someone came asked about Albania. Now Albania, solid blue, which means they are overperforming overall. Okay, let's zero in basic needs. Child stunting, what does that mean? Child stunting prevalence among children under 5. I guess that's growth, uh their growth and development. It's interesting that that's there. If anyone is thinking about Albania and they have children and with disability needs, I do know a little bit about how that country does handle um that challenge. Okay, so talk to me about that. Um let's see. Solid red here. Satisfied demand for contraception, um vulnerable employment, um contributing family workers, own account workers. Okay, so they have an employment issue there. Most people that I know go there are either going there for retirement or going there with a job already, usually teaching. I know teachers there. Okay. Um, inclusivity, they're in the red on can you count on the government for help? I happen to kind of know a little bit about that too. Um, you may have heard me mention, I don't know if I just mentioned this in the community or on YouTube about, your planning is super important, and planning your insurances are super important because if you go somewhere and something does happen, you don't want to have to run back home for certain things. You want to be able to get those services there. I happen to know a family that was in Albania that had to come back to the US for some services that were available in Albania, was available cheaper in Albania. They would have gotten those services in a home, and in the States, they had to go inside of a facility to get the round the clock services. They could have gotten them there, but they didn't have the insurance that had that component. Okay. But overall, we are in a solid blue, and under safety, they're doing great. Okay. We've looked at Legatum prosperity. We've looked at global social progress. Another thing that you've heard me um, mention, because this is where I started with all this research, guys. I started with the global peace, the global peace index, peaceful nation index. Um, yeah, this was the start. Let's look at some last choices here. So the first thing, and this is from 1920. So this is I'm not, did I say nine? What did I say? I said 1920. I did not mean 1920. It's 2020. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up soon. Okay, I'm probably not even gonna edit this. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. For those of you in my community, um, you understand. So the first page of this is just ranking of peaceful nations. So this is the first 83. I want you to see if you can find the US. These are the most peaceful countries. Okay. Let's look at the top 10. Top 10, you're going to see some familiar ones. You're going to see New Zealand, Portugal. For those of you who are thinking about Portugal, you got Portugal is great for cost of living. Portugal is great for safety. Portugal is great for being a peaceful nation. Portugal checks a lot of buckets. A lot of buckets. Let me tell you, this is why it's so popular with us because it checks climate, it's health, it checks a lot of buckets, guys. Okay. Austria. It's what took me to Austria. Okay. Denmark, Canada, Singapore. Singapore was on our list, right? Czech Republic. As a matter of fact, if I was to look at the Peaceful Nation Index versus the short list we had of top 10 cheapest countries, the only one that is there is Portugal. Okay. But you do not see the United States. United States would not be a part of the Peaceful Nation Index, not in the top 100. Okay. So when people want to tell me how safe the US is, okay, let's move down. Now we're looking at number 84 to 163, and we will find the US right here at 121 when this report was done. And here's what I want you to notice when this report was done. You only have one, two, three African nations that are lower. Only three that are lower when it comes to a peaceful nation. So when it comes to the United States, we don't do well when it comes to peace and people. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. So, and then we get into the countries that are in the red that are not. Yeah, okay. It would be interesting to me to see where Kenya is right now. Um, I will kind of do some research to see where Kenya is because I would imagine that Kenya is not in the red anymore, that it is probably at least in the yellow. Okay. All righty. What's the big takeaway from today's office hours? I'm going to wrap this up. Today's office hours. I kind of went into a lot of different directions to try to reinforce my advice in you not starting your search out with cost of living. I hope I gave you a couple of reasons to number one, look at the things that are really important to you, the things that you want to gain out of moving outside of the United States, and let that be your guide. Let that lead you, and then you bring cost of living onto the table to see if any of the countries that have made your list, if like where inside of those countries would fit into your cost of living. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. All right, you know how we do. If this video is helpful to you in any way, please subscribe to the channel. I will put this on the YouTube channel and inside of the community. Most office hours will only go into the community, but this one will go on both because I'm actually speaking to both communities, I think, in this video. Okay, and shoot me any questions um, that come to mind, and I will do my best to address them, if not immediately, eventually. Okay, and join the RYL Abroad community. Alrighty, and let's create some thriving lives. Let's get the income that you need to make it happen. For those of you who are worried about that tight budget, okay, then let's create another stream of income so you can have the budget that you want to move with. All right, it's so doable. It's so doable. If I can do it, you can do it. Alrighty, ciao.